What's going on, y'all? How are we doing today? Today I want to jump right into it. This one's going to be short and quick. I'm going to get right to the point. And actually, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping first. So the first thing, all the podcasts are going to be posted every single day. So Monday through Friday. Occasionally, I'll be able to do a podcast on the weekend or Saturday or Sunday. But typically, that's time for family and friends and things like that I don't get to do during the week. Or a lot of trainings that I'll do on the weekend. For example, this next weekend, I got a podcast on Saturday on someone else's podcast. So that's kind of when I do those. But I may, throw those in or whatnot, but I don't want it to be an expectation because that's not really my goal. If I get a chance to, if I do it, awesome. I want to definitely over-deliver in that piece. But that's kind of what I'll try to do Monday through Friday. Have a podcast every single day, kind of lined up and ready to go. But going into the topic today, it's kind of one of those things that it's not taboo, but we talk about, this idea of fear, right? Everybody talks about fear, things we're afraid of, things we're going after, things we're trying to achieve, what are we avoiding? It's like we've all probably maybe heard, success, true success for you is on the other side of the thing that you're avoiding, right? I may have mentioned on this podcast before, but the thing that you're trying to avoid, usually on the other side of that is something that you're destined to do. Right? Because a lot of times we face this resistance, we face these things that we're going up against. It's because maybe it's a fear, or it's an uncomfortability, or it's an unknown, or whatever it may be for you. Those things are usually holding us back from something because we're afraid, but usually the thing that we're being held back from is something we actually not only desire, but we should be doing. Right now, don't get me wrong, don't be stupid about that and, just go, I fear of heights, I'm just going to jump off a building just because, it's great to do, right? That's not what I'm saying, but what I'm saying is in a space where obviously it lines up and makes sense, those things that you're avoiding or you're fearful of or you're trying to kind of wean your way out of it a little bit and, I'm uncomfortable doing it, I've never really done it before, those are the things that stretch you, that grow you the most, not only in your life, but a lot of times the skill sets that you have, or maybe the skills that you have inside of you that you haven't even tapped into yet, right? It's a crazy thought to think about. It's you may have skills inside of you that have not been tapped into or developed, even though you already have a great, let's say, starter kit with that skill, but you haven't ever even stepped into it yet. And if you would, you'd realize, man, I'm actually kind of naturally gifted at this, right? There's a lot of things that you have to step into to start to realize your natural gifting. If you don't try, if you don't go for it, you may never know. So with the things that we fear, with the things that we kind of are afraid of, challenge yourself to push through those a little bit, to push through that resistance. Because resistance is coming for a lot of different reasons. And most of the time it's to stop us and to keep us comfortable, but we all understand that on the other side of comfortability is the most growth, and the other side of the most growth leads to the best version of ourselves, right? And that's what we're always trying to achieve. So we have to understand, focus more, because right here's the second step of that, right? If we understand that, we're trying to avoid things naturally, just how we're wired, then where our focus goes, there's a famous quote by Tony Robbins, where our focus goes, our energy flows, right? So where our focus is going, everything else around me, the RAS system, reticular activating system, all the different things in our body is focusing on that. When we get hyper-focused on something, we accomplish things so much quicker. Why? Because it's just the way that our body works and the way that everything kind of aligns together. When we align everything in one, we push everything in one direction, things start to move. Why? Because when we focus on everything, all of our energy, all of our focus, all of our intentionality is on that one thing. And we actually bring all that together, we'd be very amazed at what we can accomplish. Because most of the time, it's never like that. Especially in this day and age, it's like you got 20% here, 20% there, and I'm juggling this over here while I'm focused on this, and we never get our full focus for a moment, let alone 10 minutes, right? Because we're moving on to the next. Not saying that you can't do a lot of different things, but when you're doing the thing that you're doing in that moment, it better be hyper-focused. That's why I talked about before, earlier on this podcast, before we even went to video, was time blocking, right? I learned that from a good friend of mine, and I would even say he's better than a friend, man. He's a mentor in a lot of different ways, from Ryan Stewman and then also Drew B. Wilson, and showing me how to do that, because it's a game changer. When you learned how to actually do time blocks, it's insane. So when you understand that when I focus in a moment and I put all my intentionality in it, A lot of things can happen in a short period of time. But with that focus, going back to fear and tagging these two together, instead of focusing on my fear and what I'm afraid of, because that's what we all do, right? We focus on, man, like, I don't want to do that, because it's a feeling, right? We have this feeling attached to it. Let's just say it's public speaking, or it's getting on camera, or it's, I don't know, being in sales, or writing a book, or, I mean, it could be anything. Going live on Facebook, right? Whatever that thing is for you, we focus more on the feeling of that fear of what it's going to be like, how uncomfortable it's going to be, what people are going to say, all of that, instead of where our focus should be of actually doing the thing, whatever it is, right? Not the fear that comes with it. We shouldn't fear where we're going. We shouldn't fear what's going on. We shouldn't fear what people are thinking. That's usually where our focus is. So we're not even really present. We're not even in the moment. We're in ourselves. But the reality is we make the most difference when we're outside of ourselves. When we're more concerned about helping others, giving, for example, let me play that out. Let's say it's live videos on Facebook, or, I mean, it really applies to every single one I mentioned almost. Writing a book, whether it be getting on video, whether it be speaking on stage, whether it be, whatever it is. When you're focused more about the audience, when you're focused more about giving as much value as possible to the audience, you take that focus off of yourself. Which means if you take that focus off of yourself, you don't think about how I feel right now, how uncomfortable it is, what am I afraid of, my fears. You're out of yourself and you're more focused on them, and you realize when you're done, you're like, holy smoke, I didn't even realize it's because the focus was different, right? When we shift that little block in our head of getting it off of me, stop being so selfish, right? If you want to think of it that way, to make it more real for you, is you're selfish when you're only thinking about you. Right? If you're only thinking about you and how you feel in that moment, that's selfish because you got other people that are watching and listening. When was it all about you? Right? I hope that question kind of makes you think a little bit. Right? Like everything that I'm usually afraid of, everything that I usually hold back from, everything I'm usually uncomfortable with is because I'm worried about me. It's because I'm being selfish. Right? Think about it. Most of the things that hold us back, the resistance, is because we're thinking only about us. But if we leveled up and we got out of ourselves and started focusing on giving, focusing on more, like just giving more, right? And the audience or whoever it is that it has to be an audience because we're speaking or writing a book or whatever it is, we focus more on them and how they perceive or can like get the message or whatever we're trying to say. We inevitably stop thinking about ourselves. So, all that being said, whatever the things that you're going through right now, whatever the things that you're not going to say struggling with, but having resistance toward, take another look at it. Take another look at what's going on, behind the scenes. Not just the forefront, like, yeah, I ain't gonna do that. Like, why? Get it off of yourself. Like, how could I change that? How could I reprogram that? How could I change the perception of that? Because the reality is you're drawn to it maybe because you have a gift or a skill at it, but maybe you're afraid of it. A lot of us have these gifts and these skills and these things that come natural, but it's usually never discovered until we've pushed through that uncomfortable space of being unknown and we realize, wait a second, I love this, or wait a second, I'm actually really good at this. But we would never know if we didn't just put ourselves in that space. If we didn't just jump in and say, hey, sink or swim. And we realize we're actually really good. We realize we can actually swim. We realize that we're actually okay. Right? So I challenge you guys to face some of the resistance, to push past that little bit of uncomfortable pain and realize your natural gifting. Because the goal is to always become the best version of yourself. All right, guys, I want to keep it short. Like I said, I hope to see you guys in the next one. I'm going to continue to keep pumping out value as much as I can. If there's topics or things you want me to cover, let me know. And I look forward to talking to you all soon.